Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly live immigration attorney chat here at Immigration for Couples. My name is attorney Megan Pastrana. And for those of you who are new to our firm, Immigration for Couples, we are dedicated exclusively to helping couples across the nation, across the world, and navigating the U.S. immigration process. And I already see we have a lot of individuals joining us here live. And so please, and some of you already know the drill, please tell me where you are at in the world. What state are you in the US, or what country are you in? Please throw that in the comments. And I have a topic here lined up that I'd like to go over with all of you today. And then if you have any questions, I will spend the next 30 minutes answering any questions that I receive from all of you. So welcome. I'm happy to have you all here with us. I do want to let all of you know about our free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. So going through an immigration process, it can be very overwhelming. It's a bit of an alphabet soup. I like to say there's so many options, K1s and CR1s and IR1s, and it just can feel overwhelming. And so that is why I host these weekly live chats, so all of you can see that we are building this community here. You're not alone, first and foremost. I want you to be able to see you're not alone in going through an immigration process. I and my husband and I, we went through an immigration process, and that was really the catalyst for me creating Immigration for Couples. I found my calling in the world to be a guide for all of you who are going through the immigration process so you can successfully get to the finish line. And I have lovingly created a resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. You'll see that at the bottom of the screen. And Julie is here with us today, our firm administrator at Immigration for Couples. I always like to do a shout out for Julie. So when I reference webinars and things like that, she will put all of that in the comments for you. But I invite you to check out this free resource center, whether you're just starting out or in the middle of your immigration journey. I did create a webinar that goes over the different options that are available to couples. And then there's a lot of resources we give an overview of the different processes that are available to couples. All right. So I see we have so many people joining us, so that's awesome. Ginger, it's so great to have you. You're always like our first one. You're always the first one to join. So welcome. It's great to have you again. And I am streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube all at once. So I do the questions that I receive. If you'll just ask your question just one time, I receive all of the questions from all four places in order, and I answer the questions in the order that I receive them. All right. Watching from Nigeria, you're very welcome on responding to your questions. My pleasure. You're very welcome, Canada. Great to have you with us again. Okay, so let's dive in here. I do have, like I said, I do have a topic lined up. I'll go over that and then keep the questions coming, and I will go through those as well. I'd like to go through where everybody, Jan Landy, Thailand, awesome. Great to have you here. New York, Iraq, awesome. People everywhere, good morning to you as well. All right, Utah. All right, keep them coming. And so my topic that I have lined up is a question that I'm asked a lot by couples is, when should I start my immigration case? How soon should I begin preparing, or when should I file that immigration case? So the question is, it's a really great question, and it's really important. And the reason I wanted to go over it is because the other number one thing that couples will tell me at the end of their immigration journey is, I wish I would have gotten started sooner. So if you have any thoughts, if you are in a relationship and you have any thoughts that the United States is a place that you both want to establish roots and make your home now, starting now, that is the answer. You should start now. Start early. You can't start too early on your research and educating yourself and understanding options. The spouse visa process, for example, it can take on average over 18 months to get through that process. And so if you wait until you're ready, until you're at that point of, okay, yeah, we definitely want to move, we definitely both want to be in the US, then you are going to be starting at the back of that line with that 18-month wait. I've met with a lot of couples recently who have heard my videos about the wait times and starting your case now and starting early. And they said, I'm so glad that I heard that. I didn't realize, how long the process takes. And we do see ourselves moving to the US. If it's a US citizen who's living abroad as an expat, or maybe has met someone, and they're thinking, yeah, in the next year or so, we see ourselves in the US, now is the time to start, because you have to go through several different steps to get to that finish line of having that spouse visa, of having that green card to enter. So the answer is now. And another reason that I wanted to discuss this topic of when you should file your case is there are, as you know, we are in an election year in the United States. And with a change in government administration after elections, if there are changes in president and things of that nature, it can have an impact on the immigration system. And something that typically can happen is the wait times can change. They can get longer. And right now we are seeing shorter wait times with certain case types, like fiancé visas. We are seeing those are finally speeding up. And so if you have any thoughts of filing a fiancé visa, the wait times for immigration are always changing. But right now there are shorter wait times for that process. I would really encourage you to start thinking about getting started with that process now. Of course, getting started with your immigration case, I'm not saying just go out and file something to file it, but start now with educating yourselves and checking out that free resource center that I had noted. I can put that comment or that link back up here. But checking out that free resource center, watching that webinar, scheduling a consultation. I'd be happy to speak with you about your specific case, your timeline, and so you can get started with your case now. All right. So I will go ahead and I will jump over to all the questions that I have. Okay. And so I think Ginger has the first question. She's here ready to go this morning. So does the beneficiary need a police clearance from the US if they visited more than 6 months? I know I need it for the UK, but I've visited the US a few times. So in total, it's more than 6 months. So police certificates, police clearance letters are a required part of the fiancé and spouse visa process. And you have to have a police clearance letter from your country of citizenship and any country where you've lived for more than 6 months. Each U.S. consulate and embassy does have their own unique requirements, but in general, those are the requirements for the police certificate. Depending on a person's status in the U.S., if someone was in the U.S. on a type of work visa or something like that and was here for more than 6 months, we do help our clients get a background check from the United States, be it the FBI or one of the states in the U.S. If you are visiting on a tourist visa, though, or here for a short time, typically a background check isn't required. If there was a criminal incident, if there was some type of speeding ticket or some type of criminal case that happened, you would have to get a police clearance from any country, including the U.S. So, and you do want to check the U.S. consulate or U.S. embassy that post where you will be having your interview, likely London, since you are in UK. But in general, that police background check for the US is only required if you lived here for more than 6 months or had a criminal incident. There are still some cases that we help clients to get those just proactively, because at the end of the day, immigration officers have the discretion to ask for what they want. But yeah, definitely check the prepare for your interview instructions for that consular post. All right. And then, so Jan, you were saying, how much time do you have to use the K-1 visa from the time that it's issued? So great question. The fiancé visa will be issued and it will be tied to the medical exam. So the medical exam is what determines how much time that fiancé visa will be issued, whether anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So the closer the medical exam was completed to the interview, the more likely you'll have 6 months, but it usually falls somewhere between 3 and 6 months. The fiancé visa is a one-time entry visa. So once that visa is issued, you do have to enter the United States before the visa expires. If you don't, then you would have to start the process over. There are some exceptions where you can get that visa revalidated, but you don't want to be in that position. It's better to enter before it expires. And then once you enter the United States, like I said, it's a one entry visa. So once you enter, you have to stay put until you receive that green card or a travel authorization. All right. And Thailand and Las Vegas is where you're at. All right. We have someone from New York too. Great to have you. Um, okay. So, Alex, you haven't received your green card yet, and you entered May 20th. Well, congratulations on getting approved. I assume you had completed a spouse visa process. So, typically, after the spouse visa process, typically it takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days for that green card to be mailed to you. You have to pay an online fee, so make sure you've paid that online fee. The consular post should have given you instructions for paying that green card printing fee. And once you pay that green card printing fee, then they should give you a receipt number and you can track the status of your green card. But it is taking up to 90 days sometimes for that green card to be printed and delivered. But hopefully that will come soon. All right. You're from the UK, but visiting us to see my better half with my kids. Aw. All right. So, your question is, do I have to wait for instructions from the London embassy before we book the interview appointment? Our case has been ready for a while and not sure how to proceed. So, I assume that you have a fiance visa. I'm guessing that that is the process that you're doing since you've set a DS 160. You cannot book the interview until the consular post sends you an email and tells you you're allowed to take next steps. Depending on when your petition was approved, our firm always proactively works ahead for our clients. So as soon as we receive an approval, we start working on the interview packet, we start working on the online application. We do all the things that we're able to do for our clients to get them to that point to be ready for the interview. But there's no way to schedule the interview until the consular post tells you. The reason being is that the US embassies and consulates have a limited amount of interviews that they can do every month. And so when there is availability for interviews, then they will send you an email notification letting you know you can take the next steps. So you do need to wait for that. All right. Okay, so Rahim, you said due to the response last week, going through the visa process could be a tedious task for me and my fiance. So you're wanting to know how much we charge to guide you through the whole process. A tedious task indeed. It is a bit of a labyrinth, and really, like I had said on last week's video, kind of putting in balance what you want for your immigration journey, what you want for your relationship. Do you want to be teaching yourself immigration law? There are a lot of common pitfalls that can happen in the immigration process that can cause couples to have to start over or have significant delays if things are not done properly. So we'd be happy to talk with you about cost. Let me throw up the phone numbers to schedule a consultation. That would be the first step. So 317-247-5040. And you can book a consultation with me and we can talk about your particular case. We do charge $300 for the consultation, but that fee is credited to the cost of your case. Depending on your type of case, if there's a waiver and things like that, sometimes we do work on an hourly basis. But in general, we have flat fees for our fiance spouse visa adjustments of status cases. So you have financial predictability. Most of our initial deposits start somewhere in the range of 2,500 to 5,000. That's just on average, again, without knowing your specific case. That's the initial deposit. And then there are payment plans that cover the remaining cost of the case. We do interest-free financing. So I would just encourage you, call our office. Lisa can walk you through collecting your information and giving you an idea of a ballpark cost for your particular case. But getting on a phone call with me, Zoom call, so we can see one another, that's even better. We can talk about your particular case and what that overall cost would look like. But we'd be happy to help you. So you don't have to, like you said, be worried about going through the tedious process and making any mistakes, for sure. All right. Hi, Lisa. Lisa from Florida. It's nice to meet you too. I'm glad you were able to join us here from LinkedIn. Good morning. You're in Russia. All right. So my case, your CR1 yesterday I'm guessing you're saying that your case was documentarily qualified. So congratulations. That's awesome. That means for all of you who maybe are just starting out or not not sure what that means, if you're going through a spouse visa process, when you get to the second step with the National Visa Center, there's a flurry of documentation that has to be provided, a very long online application. And once all of that is turned in, and once immigration has reviewed all of it, they'll documentarily qualify the case, meaning you can be put in line for an interview. So, congratulations. That's exciting news. One step closer. All right. So, you're currently in the process of an adjustment of status, and you said you filed in December of 2015. That's great. Congratulations on getting that filed. Okay, so when you're going to the embassy and you're interviewed, is it an office setting or like a bank teller window? And is it best to have the documents separated or put into a binder? So it's very informal. The consular and the consulates and embassies are very informal format for the interview. It's kind of like the driver's license branch is what I always say, or like you're saying, like at a bank teller where they have this window. Sometimes you can hear the conversations of the people next to you. It's not it's not the most private format, but they don't actually. It's not like USCIS. There are some types of immigration interviews where you go back into an immigration officer's office. And what we do for our clients is we prepare an interview packet with everything labeled so they can easily pull out the documents and give what's required to the immigration officer. I encourage my couples that we represent to not put things in binders or three-hole punch or anything like that, because immigration officers, they have to do hundreds of interviews every day at the consulate. They don't have a lot of time per interview, and they do get frustrated if you're sitting there having to take things out of a book. I've definitely had immigration officers get frustrated with that. And so I always tell my clients it's better to have everything in order the way that our firm prepares it, with the labels so you can easily pull it out and give that to the officer. All right, great questions though. You're late. That's okay. We're still here. All right. Um, So I'm not sure what your question is. If you can apply for a visa now, or will that hamper the case? I'm not entirely sure what your question is. If you are meaning, can you apply for a tourist visa? The reality is if you are engaged or married to a United States citizen and you're going through a spouse or fiance visa process, the tourist visa is not the appropriate vehicle. It's not the appropriate path for you. Immigration is going to say, well, of course, you have to be honest. You need to be honest on your tourist visa application. And if that's what you're asking, as soon as immigration sees that you're married or engaged to a US citizen, they will say, no, the tourist visa is not for you. Tourist visas are only for people who want to come and visit, not come and live in the US. So you need to look at a fiance or a spouse visa. Good morning, Lisa. Great to have you with us. Okay, so you lost your job yesterday. I'm sorry to hear that. And you hired an attorney to plead your case after the waiver was denied. Should I let them know? Will it help my case? So I don't know what kind of waiver case that you have. There's a lot of different kinds of waiver applications, and it really depends on the basis of your waiver and really what was the evidence that you had, what were the arguments that your attorney put forth to prove that you're eligible for the waiver. We always tell our clients, please just be honest with us about updates in your life. So the best thing that you can do is speak with your attorney and let them know about this and see how it will impact your case. All right. Yeah, that's a great question. So we've seen just in the past month or so, we've seen that the fiance visa cases are all of a sudden going much faster. We're starting to see something similar with spouse visas, not quite as extreme in terms of the very first step with the petition, that those are still taking about a year. We are seeing it's some countries, some U.S. consulates and embassies that we're getting interviews faster for spouse visas. Immigration said last year that they would be hiring more immigration officers, that they would be training more immigration officers, that they were going to be prioritizing cases and really shortening the wait times. And they said it's going to take time. And the fiance visa, the spouse visa, naturalization, those were all cases that they were prioritizing. And we're finally starting to see naturalization wait times going down, fiance visa wait times going down. And I'm hopeful we'll see the same with spouse visas here soon as well. Okay. All right. This is one of the big questions that covers up the whole screen. So, how long does it take adjustment of status filed July 2023 after she visited from Canada and I surprised her with marriage back and forth with them? Okay. Okay. So, and just so you know, I know you put your question in on Facebook, and I'm using a separate platform, and so there's only it only allows so many characters. So the rest of your question was cut off, but I basically think you're asking how long does the adjustment of status process take, and is this a case that we should look at filing something called a mandamus action? So without seeing your application, I can't tell you if they would ask for more evidence. It'll really depend on the immigration officer because your case has been pending for a year now. I assume that they're probably going to think about scheduling you both for an interview. It sounds like they're needing to do more investigation with your relationship, and it sounds like maybe you have received some requests for evidence. I'm not positive. Um, I would say that what our firm always tells clients is that once we get to about a year mark, a year or more, thinking about filing a what's called a mandamus action to basically sue immigration for an unreasonable delay is something to consider. That's very case and fact specific. I would be happy to speak with you during a consultation so we could talk about your specific case. If there's any potential issues with the filing that could be rectified to get things moving along for you. And we can also talk about whether a mandamus action makes sense in your case to get that case unstuck, essentially. So here's the phone number, 317-247-5040, and I'd be happy to get on a call with you and we can talk about your particular case in private. But it does sound like it's been taking a while for you. All right. Okay. Yeah, so the online status keeps saying that it's taking longer than expected. Okay, so yeah, that is, yeah, that the online case status was created to give more transparency, but oftentimes it's um, making things more confusing and for clients, and it's really not giving the clarity that you're looking for. So definitely, I'd be happy to speak with you in private and even more detail about your case and talk about possible options for sure. I've filed quite a few mandamus actions, and that's gotten the case unstuck. And then sometimes there's just a defect or a flaw in the initial filing that can be remedied to get the case moving forward. All right. Good morning. Thank you for being with us. All right, California. Okay, so you received your green card, but it doesn't show my middle name because it's too long, but my passport does. Will I have a problem coming back to the US at the airport? Will I be sent to a secondary inspection? So yeah, it's common if your middle name is long that it won't fit on the green card, so they won't print it. I would double check your application and make sure that the name was properly recorded with immigration. In general, that shouldn't be an issue if it's different than your passport. You can always be sent to secondary as a green card holder. I always encourage clients who are traveling on their green card when entering the US, if you have a connecting flight, make sure you give yourself at least a several hour layover for inspection if they need to, look at things more closely at your green card. All right. Okay. So if the I-130 is submitted with the green card and the sponsor's status is updated during the process to become a US citizen from after naturalization, will the process start over or continue? So that's great. If the petitioner becomes a citizen during the process, that will help to shorten the wait time. Green card holders that are petitioning for their spouses have a very long wait because they're what's considered non immediate relatives. So they have a longer line in which they have to wait. And US citizens, they have to wait in a line for immigration to review the application, but not for a visa to become available. So it's a shorter wait, is what I'm saying for US citizens. And if a person becomes a US citizen, if a petitioner becomes a US citizen in the middle of the process, then we've had that happen with some of our cases. We have to go through a formal process to notify immigration and ask for the file to be updated. But the process won't start over. There's just some additional steps to take. Okay, so Angela, you say that you were deported previously. How long to be able to visit the U.S. after the interview at the embassy? So it depends on when that deportation occurred. It depends on why. Was it something where you were entering on a tourist visa, and for example, there was some other issue in your immigration history that caused that deportation, or if you entered without documents. It really will depend on the circumstances. And immigration has a very long list of problems a person can have in their background. And those problems, some of them have a solution through what's called a waiver. So when you go to your interview, if you're going through a spouse or fiance visa process, when you go to your interview, the consular officer will see any problems you have in your immigration history, and he or she will say, "We can't approve your visa because you have these issues in your immigration history, and you would need to apply for these waivers if you're eligible for a waiver." And so we've helped hundreds of individuals go through a waiver process to get forgiveness to be able to receive the visa to come to the US. So it really depends on the circumstances of that deportation as to what your next steps would be. All right, and um, then I can give you our free resource center, and then the phone number, the 317-247-5040. If you have additional questions, I'd be happy to speak with you on a consultation. All right. Okay. So currently serving my 2-year home residency, we filed the I-130 before I left the US. Did we do the right thing? So I'm guessing you had a J visa that had a 2-year residency requirement. And so you're completing that 2-year residency requirement to be able to complete the I-130 process. So that's great. If you filed the I-130, that for J visas, you have to wait out those 2 years before you can take the next steps to actually receive the visa. And then there are ways sometimes to get a waiver of that 2-year requirement for different reasons. And I've done J waivers as well. So if you are looking at doing a waiver of that requirement, that's something you might want to consider as well. Otherwise, you have to wait for those 2 years to be able to complete the final steps in the spouse visa process. All right. Oh, you're waiting for your son to propose. His girlfriend leaves at the end of the month. Oh. Hopefully, I know you've been waiting. I know you've been waiting for a while. Oh, please let us know when that happens. We'll be celebrating with you. Okay, so Patricia, you are asking. You heard that Americans cannot bring spouses to the U.S. anymore. Is this true? Yeah, there's some strange rumor going on out there about not being able to bring your spouses anymore, and that's not true. There's a immigration law. The Immigration and Nationality Act is what sets out the laws for who can bring family members and U.S. citizens. That law still stands. The Immigration and Nationality Act has not changed. Those laws would have to be changed by an agreement with the Congress and Senate to make changes to the immigration laws. And so those laws they're written laws. They're still set. They have not changed. And so you can still bring your spouse. And there's a couple different options for doing that. So that's not true. All right. Yeah, yeah, and then you were saying you received the taking longer than expected. I know that's frustrating to receive that message. Not helpful, is it? Okay. Okay, so how far in advance can you get your medical exam done before the interview? So that's a really great question. A lot of people ask that, but the medical exam is tied directly to the interview being scheduled. So for fiance and spouse visa cases, you have to wait for the embassy or the consulate to tell you, okay, your interview has been scheduled, or you can schedule your interview and your medical exam. So you have to wait for them to tell you you can get that medical exam scheduled. Typically, most clinics will allow you to do your medical exam as far as 30 days in advance. So I always check with the clinic. Some clinics say, hey, it takes us 2 to 3 weeks to get the results done for the medical exam. So you'll want to make sure you schedule ahead of time so it can be done in time for your interview. Some medical clinics can get the exam done relatively quickly, same day or within a few days. But you can't schedule it until that interview is scheduled. All right. Okay, so my I-130 case is at the National Visa Center. We have paid the fees but did not upload the documents yet. When is the best time to go for the medical review? Do we plan after submitting documents? So your I-130, okay. Okay, so this is great. This was the same question that Life with Grace was asking. The medical exam is not part of that National Visa Center process. The National Visa Center process has to be completed first, and then you'll move on for an interview. And it's not until the interview is scheduled that the medical exam can be scheduled. You have to wait for the consulate to tell you to schedule the medical exam. So, at what part of the process can your spouse get a US passport to travel? So, a US passport is different from a green card. The green card is your lawful permanent resident status, and then a US passport is what you receive through a naturalization process. So, individuals who receive their green card based on marriage to a United States citizen are eligible typically for the naturalization process to receive a US passport 3 years after receiving the green card. And you can check out our free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. And in that free resource center, I go over that naturalization process and who's eligible. All right. All right. I have a lot of okay, so Ginger, you're very welcome. You did a little digging and it says US police certificates are not required, just in case anyone else was interested. Great. Thank you, Ginger. And yeah, do that is great. That's very helpful. And yeah, definitely do always check the particular consular post requirements because even though it's US immigration, they can vary from consulate to consulate. All right. All right, I have time for one more question here before I need to jump off. So, you're a US citizen. I was married in another country but returned alone to the US. How can I bring my spouse to the US to reside with me? So, it sounds like because you are legally married, that the process that would be applicable to you, that would be the best for you, is something called a spouse visa. And let me throw up the resource center, immigrationforcouples.com. Check out our website and check out that webinar. I created a webinar that has the different options available to couples. And then we even have a downloadable chart that goes over that spouse visa process. All right. But congratulations on your marriage. That's very exciting. All right, everyone. I do have to jump. You're very welcome. Yes, you're always looking because I hope to marry my boyfriend in November. Yay, congratulations. Hopefully soon. All right, everybody. I think I got almost all of them. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody's question, but please join me next week. I'll be here next week, next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And yeah, I'll see you all next week. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Take care, everyone. Bye.